An amazing request. Poor girl asks Millionaire to be her dad at graduation. His incredible response. The crowd buzzed with excitement as Emily stood at the podium, heart racing, sweat rolling down her back. She wanted to shout, but her voice barely made it out when she began her speech. I know I have no one here today, no dad to cheer for me. The words hung in the air, a brittle line drawing attention to her reality. Gears turned in her mind, wrestling with the gulf separating her from the polished graduates in their caps and gowns, accompanied by parents glowing with pride. She swallowed hard, her throat constricting, eyes scanning the faces. The sea of families flooded her with a dizzying loneliness, accentuating her struggles, punctuating every sacrifice she made for this moment. Emily squeezed her eyes shut, fighting against the swell of unwanted emotions. How could she belong in a world glittering with privilege when hers felt so starkly bare? She hustled between classes and 3 part-time jobs, her mother's efforts etched deeply into her soul. Still, the deep pit inside throbbed, a deep-seated feeling of not being enough, of yearning for someone who would hold her up, even just for today. In one audacious moment, courage pushed her to break free from the weight stifling her spirit. "Mr. Thompson, can you be my dad for just today?" The gasps echoed like thunder through the audience, her pulse racing louder than the shaking of her voice. Her breath quickened, panic racing alongside embarrassment. Had she really just asked that? Was that reckless enough to dim the jubilance of today? The weight of her request settled heavy in the air, mixing with the uneasy laughter from her peers. The audience leaned in. It wasn't a mere play for sympathy, but raw vulnerability, a reflection of the need for love that so many in the crowd secretly craved. Wasn't there more to life than a simple title, a chance to connect? She felt a weight of anticipation, yearning for Mr. Thompson's eyes to meet hers, wanting a connection, a spark of understanding. But then doubt crept in. Emily's thoughts spiraled. What if he dismissed her, offended? She glanced away as Mr. Thompson's expression flickered with confusion. He'd risen from nothing and crafted a life that surpassed mere wealth. Did he feel as alone as she did? Could he see past the surface, the audacity of her plea and understand? Or was it all just another rich man's game, a decision made by whims rather than genuine desire? "Let's do something more meaningful," he finally replied, voice steady, but the weight of his words pressed down on her. How do we define this relationship? What does it mean to earn a father's love? The questions unspooled inside Emily's mind, like a hesitant train of thoughts, rattling her insides more than ever before. She wanted to scream, "I just want to connect," but instead felt trapped beneath a fog of self-doubt. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The weight of her insecurities tightened its grip. The stark reality of privilege and perseverance blurred in the tension-filled atmosphere. Could she truly reshape her identity through mentorship? Questions gnawed at her resolve. What if she failed to meet expectations? The stakes felt impossibly high, and with each moment, the chasm between them seemed insurmountable. She felt a tightening in her chest, muscles tense, breathing shallow and ragged. As time passed, unreciprocated glances exchanged, doubts clouded her initial excitement. Emily battled the thought, a moment's whim or something more. What would it require to earn that title of dad? The answer loomed, a heavy weight behind her every second of contemplation. A choice lay ahead, a crossroads of vulnerability and ambition. As Emily stood on the precipice, she felt the pressure twisting her gut. Was she ready to redefine what family truly meant? The question hung unresolved, tight around her heart, as she heard the quiet stir of stifled breaths behind her. The moment thickened, and she grasped for a thread of hope swirling in the uncertainty, wishing for clarity amid the chaos. Emily's mind raced, time stretching in an eerie silence, the microphone still clutched tightly in her hand like a lifeline. She could feel the weight of countless eyes on her, heavy with expectation and curiosity. What more could she say? What comfort could she find in this moment? Each heartbeat echoed with the growing realization that she'd crossed into uncharted territory. The reality of her impulsive request loomed large. Did she truly want to enter into a relationship defined by expectations and obligations? What if Mr. Thompson saw her vulnerability as a weakness? The fear of being rejected swirled fiercely, gnawing at her determination. "Mr. Thompson," she started, her voice shaky, but she steadied herself as she risked looking at him again. "What if we made this a mentorship?" The words spilled out before she could retract them. She couldn't stop the cascade of thoughts overwhelming her. "I need guidance. I don't want help just for today. I want to learn what it means to be strong like you." He leaned forward, the subtle shift in his posture piquing her interest and hope. "Guidance can be a powerful thing, Emily," he replied, his voice firm yet gentle. "But mentorship and emotional ties run deeper than titles. You must understand what you truly want from it. Are you prepared for that?" Or the contradiction in her heart intensified. She longed for a sense of belonging, but feared the price of mentorship. Expectations, vulnerability, and the possibility of further disappointment. Her struggles had always been solitary, a fierce fight against the world. Yet here she stood, on the verge of embracing something unknown. "Mentorship means accountability," he continued, eyeing her intently. "You need to commit. It requires effort and trust. You'd need to face parts of yourself that might be uncomfortable." The thought sent shivers down her spine. What parts of herself had she hidden away? The prospect terrified her, yet ignited a spark deep within. For years, she'd converged her entire existence around survival, studies, jobs, managing her emotions. What if mentorship was a different kind of survival? Could it unfurl into an opportunity for growth, rather than merely fixing the past? "I can commit," she blurted impulsively, surprising even herself. "I want to learn, to understand more than just the struggles. I'm already confronting my insecurities." Mr. Thompson's brow furrowed slightly, as if she'd struck a chord of shared understanding within him, one that echoed in the unlikeliest of circumstances. He leaned back, contemplating her response, his expression transitioning from hesitation to thoughtful curiosity. "Then we will start the way most relationships do, with dialogue. But you will need to uncover your truths, which may not be easy." He took a moment, his gaze unwavering, capturing her attention completely. "Are you ready to seek those truths, even if they bruise to reveal potential?" Emily swallowed hard, her heart racing, each question carving deeper into her psyche. She had no roadmap, no reassurance besides the flicker of resolve igniting within. I want to understand." "Very well," Mr. Thompson replied, an intriguing glimmer of respect shining in his eyes. "Then let us define this partnership, Emily. It's essential we navigate honesty, even when it stings." Fueled by a sudden surge of determination, Emily felt the air crackling between them. She knew she stood at the threshold of an evolution, where she could confront the scars etched into her identity while forging a path filled with mentoring and growth. The weight of legacy pressed at her back, urging her to transform, to forge her own definition of family, supported not solely by blood, but also by purpose and connection. As she drew a breath and prepared for their next steps, the flicker of self-doubt began to feel less daunting. Perhaps this venture into mentorship was exactly what she needed. A chance to converge two disparate worlds, bridging the gap between her lonely existence and the one Mr. Thompson had navigated. And somewhere in that space, she might finally find her own truth. Yet, just as conviction pulsed through her veins, an encumbering thought crept back into her mind. What if Mr. Thompson only saw her as a project? As he initiated the discussion, her imagination raced dangerously towards this possibility. Could she stand the heartbreak if it turned out to be just that? Determined not to shy away from this new confrontation, Emily leaned forward. "Let's redefine it then," she said, her voice firm, nerves granting her unexpected strength. "But know this, they won't be my only truths. There's so much more to uncover." With that, the ground shifted beneath her, and she understood that this journey could either fortify her or fracture her entirely. In the depths of her psyche, the stakes had just risen. "What will we discover together?" Mr. Thompson mused, leaning closer, the gravity of the moment demanding attention. But before she could answer, another question stalked her mind ominously. Would the discovery expose her, or would it ultimately fuel her burgeoning resilience? Emily's resolve clashed violently with her underlying fear as Mr. Thompson regarded her with an intensity that seemed to reach into her very core. It was a threshold moment, suspending her between the safety of her familiar solitude and the uncharted waters of self-discovery. She could feel her heartbeat reverberate through the silence, each pulse echoing doubt and exhilaration alike. She dared not to waver, not now. "I understand it won't be easy. I have always kept my truths at bay, thinking them too dangerous to confront." Her confession hung in the air, heavy and thick with anticipation. Mr. Thompson nodded thoughtfully. "That's the first step, acknowledging what you've kept hidden. Now, let's begin the process. Truths can be liberating or paralyzing. You need to determine how they will serve you." With a deep breath, Emily felt her walls starting to crack. "Can we start with the biggest truth?" she ventured tentatively, the urge to unveil herself almost overwhelming. "I've always felt abandoned. My mother left when I was young, and it made me question my worth. That emptiness shaped me into someone who can't ask for help." Her voice thinned with vulnerability, but each word stripped away the armor she had donned for years. Mr. Thompson's expression softened. "That's a powerful admission. Your sense of abandonment has defined many aspects of your life, hasn't it? But what if it no longer needs to?" The concept rattled around in her mind. She wasn't sure it was possible to escape the shadow of her past. "How can I transform something that's so ingrained in me?" she asked, urgency pressing against her ribs as she sought answers. "By redefining your narrative," he answered, firm and clear. "Create a new story, one that features resilience rather than despair. Recognize that pain has shaped you but does not have to define your future. Growth begins when you take ownership of your experiences." Emily processed his words, her heart racing with the realization that she could reshape her reality. In her past, she had always bottled emotions or pushed them aside, refusing to acknowledge their impact. Could she truly turn her vulnerabilities into strengths? This mutable promise opened a door she hadn't dared to contemplate. "Let's explore this together. What steps can you take to begin rewriting that narrative?" he pressed, guiding her with a steady hand. What could she do? "I could start by journaling my feelings. Writing down those truths might make them easier to face." "Excellent. Writing will not only help you clarify your thoughts, but will also prepare you for discussions like this. Craft your narrative with intention. Share it with me when you're ready," he encouraged. Emily nodded, a flicker of hope igniting beneath the layers of uncertainty. "What about my fear of asking for help?" The question tumbled out with raw honesty, grounding her in the face of this momentous change. Fear is a natural resistor, but it can also be a catalyst for growth. Acknowledge it, but don't let it dictate your actions. Asking for help is a strength, not a weakness. It nurtures connections and empowers you, he remarked, his emphasis striking a chord within her. With each passing word, the weight of her past began to lighten, replaced by a burgeoning sense of empowerment. She recognized a visceral change beginning to pulse through her veins, one steeped in possibility rather than self-doubt. "Can you commit to this journey?" Mr. Thompson inquired, his gaze piercing yet encouraging. "I can," she affirmed, finding new strength in her voice. The commitment felt monumental, a promise not just to him, but to herself, to unearth the truths buried within and transform them into stepping stones toward her future. As they concluded their session, doubt resurfaced, lurking in the corners of her mind. Was she equipped for this challenge? Would the inner revelations truly lead to growth, or would they invite chaos into her carefully constructed life? Determined to move forward, Emily glanced at Mr. Thompson with newfound conviction. "I'm ready. Let's make this work." He smiled, a hint of pride in his expression. "The next step is confronting the memories that weigh you down. Prepare to face them." With a mix of excitement and terror bubbling beneath the surface, Emily understood now that the journey ahead would require tenacity, but also a willingness to stand raw and exposed. This was not merely a quest for guidance. It was a challenge to unearth everything she had tucked away. Even as she felt the thrill of possibility humming in her chest, the pervasive dread of her unexamined past loomed ominously. What revelations awaited her in the depths of her mind, and would she be strong enough to withstand the fallout of their unveiling? As Emily sat in her small apartment that evening, she could hear the muffled sounds of the city outside her window, a symphony of life that felt distant, yet oddly welcoming. For the first time, she felt an undeniable urge to confront the swirling memories inside her, ones that had long dictated her behaviors. With a fresh notebook in hand, she faced a daunting blank page. She hesitated, nibbling the end of her pen. What do I even begin to write? The emptiness echoed her own uncertainty. Each word that she had ever choked back rose like steam from a pot, and the thought of allowing it to spill onto the page filled her with unease. But then she recalled Mr. Thompson's words. Create a new story. Inspiration flared within her. The thought of documenting her vulnerabilities transformed from a chore into an opportunity, a means to reclaim her voice. She scribbled down her initial thoughts, allowing the rhythm of her pen to guide her, no longer shackled by fear of judgment. "I felt abandoned when my mother left," she wrote. And as the ink flowed, so did her kindness toward her past self. "I questioned my worth for so long." With each sentence, she dismantled the narrative she had lovingly crafted around her pain. The act of writing became a ritual, a confrontation of memories that had silenced her for years. After the first few organized thoughts, the pages began to fill with deeper reflections, insights that startled even her. "I didn't know how to ask for help because I thought I was unworthy. Each time I felt the urge, I would withdraw, assuming no one would care." The revelation struck her. By instilling her fear within such stark prose, she faced it. No longer was this fear an omnipresent shadow. Instead, it became a part of the documentation, a piece she could inspect and analyze. Her heart raced as realizations rushed through her mind like a current. She grasped the truth. Every moment she had spent isolated in her convictions about worthlessness was a choice, albeit one conditioned by circumstance. By continuing this practice, she was not only writing about it, she was actively choosing to challenge it. That night, she decided to set her pen down, her thoughts swirling like an unsettled storm. Emily realized she needed more than just her notebook. She required another layer of accountability. Mr. Thompson had become her guide, but she sensed that sharing her writings with someone else would symbolize a larger leap into vulnerability. Wouldn't that be asking for help? She mused. This time not with dread, but with dawning excitement. The prospect of sharing her thoughts felt exhilarating, an unprecedented step toward her goal of redefining herself. She envisioned reading passages from her notebook aloud, feeling the words resonate not only through her but also throughout the room filled with others experiencing similar struggles. It was then that she made an impulsive decision to reach out to her closest friend, Mia. Inviting Mia into her journey felt like breaking through an invisible wall. Could I ask her to read my journal entries? The thought of doing so ignited an energy within her, illuminating the potential of shared experiences. The next day, Emily texted Mia, inviting her over for an impromptu sharing session. As she awaited Mia's response, an exhilarating mix of anticipation and apprehension swirled within her, amplifying her heartbeat once again. As she paced her tiny living room, Emily's mind whirled with the implications of her budding courage. What might she reveal to her friend? What new truths could emerge from their conversation? Just then, the ping of her phone startled her from contemplation. Mia's message glowed brightly on the screen. "I'd love to. Can't wait to hear everything." Suddenly, clarity struck Emily. This was her opportunity to learn how to open up, to build connections, and to safeguard her growth in a way she had never done before. Empowered by the new dynamics forming in her life, she took a deep breath, ready to embrace whatever response awaited her after she resumed her journal. Yet, even amidst this burgeoning hope, an unsettling realization crept in. If she was ready to share her heart with others, could she also prepare herself for how they might react? What if Mia didn't understand? What if she turned away from the depths of Emily's truths? Would exposing herself ultimately lead to acceptance, or would it incite another layer of abandonment? As the tension coiled tightly in her chest, Emily found herself staring blankly at her notebooks, the collection of her fears laid bare like a treasure map, leading somewhere. Yet still, it felt so unknown. What awaited her in this new, fraught encounter? As she was poised on the threshold of collaboration and growth, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was about to face something monumental, something that would shift her trajectory yet again. Would she be ready to navigate the storm ahead? As the afternoon sun dipped low in the sky, casting long shadows across her living room, Emily found herself pacing back and forth, her heart a metronome echoing the uncertainty spiraling inside her. The thought of Mia's impending arrival filled her with a mix of excitement and anxiety. Each step brought to mind a new worry. What if Mia was unprepared for the emotional weight of Emily's stories? What if the vulnerability she was about to unearth would lead to discomfort, not connection? In moments of doubt, Emily would remind herself that this was a critical juncture, a necessary phase of her growth. Each tick of the clock propelled her toward what she hoped would be a breakthrough. She gathered her notebooks, stacking them neatly on the coffee table, creating a physical representation of her inner world. No longer did these pages contain mere words of sorrow and fear. They represented strength she hadn't yet fully recognized. The doorbell finally rang, a sound both welcome and nerve-wracking. Emily took a deep breath, smoothing her shirt as she reminded herself of the transformative power this moment could hold. "Here goes nothing," she mumbled under her breath, forcing a smile as she opened the door. Mia stood there, a bright presence with an enthusiastic grin, effortlessly bringing warmth into the space. "I'm here!" she exclaimed, stepping inside and wrapping Emily in a tight hug. It felt grounding, a momentary reminder that she wasn't alone in her journey. "I've been looking forward to this all day." As they settled onto the couch, a gentle energy enveloped them. Emily caught Mia's eye and felt the familiar urge to retreat, to hide in the comfort of silence. But an unshakable urge ignited within her, a desire to share the truth she had uncovered. "Mia, I've been writing about some really personal stuff. I want to share it with you, if that's okay." Mia nodded, her expression sincere. "Of course, I'm all ears." With each hesitant phrase, Emily began to unravel her heart, sharing her stories. Her feelings of abandonment, her internal struggles with inadequacy, and how these had shaped her life choices. As the words poured out, her initial nervousness began to dissipate, replaced by an exhilarating sense of freedom. Each sentence echoed through the small room like a gentle tide rolling in, sweeping away the debris of self-doubt. Mia listened intently, her face a mixture of empathy and concern. After Emily shared a particularly raw entry, Mia leaned closer, her eyes widened with understanding. "Emily, I had no idea. You've been carrying so much, and it's incredible that you're willing to speak about it." But as Emily sought solace in Mia's presence, another thought flared in her mind, dark and nebulous. What if this expression of her innermost struggles didn't bring them closer, but pushed Mia away instead? Would this newfound openness ruin their friendship? The tension in her chest tightened again, a reminder of the stakes she was gambling with. And just as the silence settled, weighs heavy with unspoken words, Mia spoke. "Emily, I wish you had come to me sooner. I want you to know that you're not alone. I'll be here, through this transformation." The sincerity in Mia's voice offered a balm to Emily's swirling fears. The moment offered a glimpse of shared growth. Mia wasn't just a listener. She was an ally, ready to bolster Emily's new narrative. Cautiously, Emily continued sharing her entries, feeling herself shift, not just in her language but also in her heart. As brave thoughts became vocalized, the painful stigma around her past wavered. She wondered if this would allow her to find more pieces of herself along the way, not just within the confines of her notebook, but in the supportive presence of her friend. But as they moved deeper into conversation, hashing out the elements of shame and fear, Emily's vulnerability opened a vast terrain filled with the potential for acceptance. Outside, life continued its chaotic dance. But in her small apartment, the two friends spun a new story together. Then came a moment that caught Emily off guard. As she wrapped up, Mia looked thoughtfully at her. "Have you thought about sharing these with others? Maybe even a group? They could benefit from hearing your story." That suggestion, though earnest, sent another jolt of fear cascading through Emily. "What if I'm not ready? What if it's too much?" Mia smiled reassuringly but posed a challenge in her gaze. "Maybe you're more ready than you think. Sometimes, sharing is how we realize how far we've come, and it can help others in ways we can't imagine." The recognition that sharing her truths could potentially help others stirred something deep within Emily, an urge to impact lives while she continued to explore her own. Perhaps this moment could be the catalyzing force she needed. Could she summon the courage to take this step? Just as these thoughts solidified into resolve, Emily felt an insistent ding from her phone, an alert breaking the tension of the moment. It was a message from Mr. Thompson, her mentor. "Excited to hear about your progress. Let's meet soon and discuss your journey." With her heart racing, Emily realized the universe was aligning, her mentors echoing the very themes she was now grappling with. Could she embrace this moment and prepare herself to step into the unknown? The storm ahead might reshape her reality yet again, and somehow it felt like a pivotal choice stood waiting for her on the horizon. Emily sat in the silence that followed Mia's suggestion, the weight of it pressing heavily upon her. The thoughts wrestled in her mind. Could she really share her writing with others? The very idea felt both electrifying and paralyzing. She absently fiddled with a loose thread on her sweater, an outward manifestation of her inner turmoil. "Emily?" Mia's gentle voice broke through her spiraling thoughts. "What are you thinking?" "I'm just not sure if I'm ready for that kind of exposure. What if I share, and it doesn't resonate? What if it falls flat?" The words tumbled out, revealing a vulnerability that felt like standing on a precipice, prepared to jump but terrified of the landing. Mia regarded her thoughtfully. "You'll never know unless you try. Trust me, the fear is natural, but think about the impact you could have. Your story matters, and hiding it away won't do anyone any good. Not you, or those who might need to hear it." Emily's heart raced as she absorbed Mia's encouragement. Could her words really help someone else, or was that merely an illusion crafted by her desire to be seen? After a pause, she brought her notebooks closer, their spines lined up like soldiers ready for battle. The idea of public vulnerability hung tantalizingly before her, but the stakes felt impossibly high. What if, in revealing herself, she lost the very connection she now cherished with Mia? "I'll think about it," she replied, her voice steady, but lacking conviction. Deep down, however, a flicker of determination sparked. Maybe grappling with this fear of sharing was a part of her growth. As they delved deeper into conversations, unraveling layers of past pain and anxiety, Emily felt the strength of their bond solidify. Each revelation transformed her narratives from whispers to proclamations, and these silent truths gained a voice. Yet, the nagging question still throbbed in the back of her mind. Was she truly prepared to confront the world with her story? In the subsequent days, Emily couldn't shake off the idea of sharing her experiences. The message from Mr. Thompson lingered, like a beacon guiding her toward potential that underscored her unease. She began to sketch out a plan, contemplating what it would mean to stand before a group of strangers, no, potential allies, who might see her untold story. Her evenings shifted as she armed herself with a notebook and pen, drafting tentative outlines of what her speeches might entail. However, fear would creep in, casting doubts. Each scribbled word was a double-edged sword, crafting clarity and stinging with self-doubt. What if her past wasn't powerful enough? What if it stung instead of healed? With each stroke of the pen, the internal dialogue sharpened into focus. She pored over her experiences, seeking themes of hope and resilience. She wanted to incorporate the struggles that had left indelible marks, yet she despaired over whether they would resonate broadly or remain painfully personal. "Maybe you should do a trial run," Mia suggested one evening while they sipped tea on the couch. "A small group of friends would be less intimidating than strangers. You could test the waters." Test the waters. The phrase hummed in her mind, evoking both curiosity and fear. What would it feel like to stand before a mirror of her peers, confront not just her story, but also their reactions? A knot formed in her stomach as she envisioned the risks, but the thought of progress propelled her to consider it earnestly. Finding a few friends willing to listen felt vulnerable, but also liberating. Emily imagined their faces and the safety net familiarity could provide. Perhaps she needed the trial run to bolster her confidence before stepping into the broader arena. In those next weeks, she sculpted her narrative, experimenting with tone, pacing, and emotion. The direct confrontation with her past fueled her motivation, even as it challenged her. Each word became a step toward understanding, not just the experience, but herself. On the night she lined up her friends for what she dubbed the testing ground, a surge of anxiety washed over her anew. As they greeted her with warm smiles and encouraging nods, the moment felt surreal, a blend of excitement and horror. Would this tentative unveiling help her pave the path toward sharing with the world? Just before she began, her phone buzzed with another notification. It was an invite from a local writers group she'd been eyeing, an open call for members to share their stories as a part of a community showcase. The moment felt electric, a juxtaposition of fear and possibility converging. She glanced at her friends, their expressions filled with anticipation and support. In that instant, a powerful realization struck. Whatever happened next, this could serve as the launch pad for her journey into the light. But was it truly the right time to leap? As she took a deep breath, preparing to share her words for the first time outside her notebooks, she felt the tremor of anticipation coursing through her veins. Would this be where she either found her voice or stumbled into a silence that echoed endlessly? The answer teetered on the edge of her consciousness, waiting to unfold. Emily inhaled deeply, the atmosphere in the room thick with expectation. As she opened her mouth, her heart raced, a frantic drumbeat echoing her internal struggle. The spotlight, if only metaphorical, was firmly fixated on her. What began as a tentative whisper morphed into a clearer, steadier voice, revealing her thoughts and fears accumulated over years of quiet reflection. "I've always thought of writing as a private escape," she began, glancing at her friends. Their supportive nods fanned the flame of her courage. But lately, I've been grappling with the idea that it could be more, that maybe sharing these stories could bridge gaps, both for me and for others. Each word felt transformative, as though she was shedding layers of inhibition. In surveying their faces, she felt the warmth of encouragement seep into her veins, fortifying her resolve. She wove anecdotes from her life, the crushing weight of isolation, the jubilant turns of small victories, the trembling moments of vulnerability. With each revelation, she noticed her audience leaning closer, their expressions shifting from mere curiosity into something deeper, a shared understanding. Instinctively, she adjusted her tone, infusing her words with emotional depth. There are moments when I felt so lost, chained by my own fears, and yet, in those moments, writing became my lifeline. It allowed me to process, to breathe, and in some way, to heal. As she continued, she was struck by the ease with which the words flowed now. She had stepped into a rhythm that allowed her to speak not just from her mind, but from a place of visceral truth. Anxiety morphed into palpable determination, each sentence building upon the last, creating a tapestry of emotional resonance. The initial fear of stumbling converted into a liberated momentum, yet deep down she still concerned herself with the vulnerability of exposure. Would they see her as an imposter? Would her truths resonate or falter like a song sung out of key? Once she finished, an overwhelming silence followed, punctuated only by the soft sounds of her friends shifting their positions, processing what they'd just heard. Emily's heart sank slightly at the uncertainty of their reactions. Then, one by one, her friends broke the quiet. A gentle applause filled the room, and a flood of warmth began to swell in her chest as Emma, the most outspoken of the group, leaned forward, eyes glistening. "That was stunning," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "You have a way of articulating things that many of us grapple with but can't quite express." This acknowledgement struck like a clarion call. Emily could feel her pulse quicken, hope mingling with disbelief. Am I really capable of this? The discussion that followed became a mosaic of insights and encouragement. They offered feedback that transcended mere praise. They shared their own fears and struggles as they reflected on the themes Emily had articulated. She suddenly discovered a gift she had not recognized before, a capacity to foster connection through shared experience. With every encouraging word, her confidence burgeoned, demanding a new space in her psyche. A question, once distant, then returned with renewed urgency. Would this encounter be enough to arm her for the upcoming writers' group presentation? Would she have the fortitude to face not just familiar friends, but a broader audience, strangers who might judge her? Later that night, as she sat at her desk replaying the evening's conversation in her mind, a surge of realization washed over her. The worry about judgment had shifted into curiosity about potential. Her heart now thrummed with anticipation, the prospect of further sharing pulling at her like a magnetic force. And yet, another wave of apprehension settled in. What if her next step, the local writers' group, offered nothing but criticism, trivializing her efforts? There was no way to predict how that wider world might respond. The invitation glowed brightly on her phone's screen, demanding her attention. A part of her wanted to dismiss it, to cling to the safety of her familiar space. Yet another part pulsated with excitement and dread at the challenge ahead. She had a choice, to retreat back into the quiet corners of her mind, or to heed the call for growth, to brandish her truth with the audacity that had begun to bloom. Closing her laptop, she made her decision. A reluctant, yet exhilarating acceptance of the unknown. As Emily resolved to attend the group, a thought echoed in her mind. This wasn't merely about her. The weight of her actions could shape not just her destiny, but the lives of those who might find strength in her vulnerability. Would she stand firm in her truth, come what may? The following morning, empowered by this newfound perspective, Emily meticulously prepared for her first outing. The memories of her friend's support shimmered in her mind, buoying her spirit. She recalled their encouragement as she pieced together her first speech, allowing the doubts to clear like fog evaporating in the light. Just before she left, a sudden realization swept over her. Maybe the real challenge wasn't just sharing her story. It was the risk of authenticity. Could she summon the courage to display both her struggles and triumphs without holding back? With one last glance in the mirror, she squared her shoulders, ready to meet both judgment and growth. The gravity of the moment enveloped her, and a fateful question lingered. Would this leap into the unknown lead her towards liberation, or into new entanglements of uncertainty? The answer awaited her in uncharted territory. Emily stepped into the coffee shop, the faint hum of conversations, and the aroma of freshly brewed coffee creating a buzz of life around her. The recognition of the familiar space dissolved a layer of her apprehension, yet the thrill of the unknown still crackled in the air. Her heart pounded against her rib cage, a reminder of the importance of this step she was taking. Today wasn't just about sharing her work. It was about stepping into a world where her words might echo beyond the walls of her own mind. She found a corner table, deliberately seeking solitude to gather her thoughts. As she unrolled her notepad, her fingers toyed with the edges, a tension building between excitement and fear. The weight of expectation hung heavier than before. What if these strangers judged her harshly? What if they discarded her vulnerability as mere whimsy? Moments later, a few familiar faces began to trickle into the cafe. They belonged to the local writing group, an eclectic mix of seasoned authors and passionate amateurs. Emily's heart raced as they took seats at tables nearby, their conversations a low hum that only added to her anxiety. Just last week, she had been standing on the outskirts of this circle. Now she would be thrust into its core. She absently replayed her friend's words in her mind, the encouragement swirling alongside her self-doubt. Could she really be vulnerable in a new environment? A knot tightened in her stomach as she remembered her previous disclosures, the fluttering support it had garnered from those closest to her. But here, amidst strangers, would her authenticity still shine? Each person settled in, the last few conversations unraveling into focus. As the group leader began introductions, Emily felt a shift within herself. She remembered how liberating it felt to share her story with her friends, how intertwined their encouragement had been with her growth. Maybe she could summon that same courage today. When her turn arrived, Emily swallowed the lump in her throat and stood. The eyes of the group turned toward her, inquisitive and open. She took a deep breath, steadying her voice. "I'm Emily," she began, trying to foster a connection beyond the surface. "I've struggled with sharing my writing for a long time, but I've come to realize that it's not just for me anymore. It's a way to connect, to foster understanding." As she spoke, the nerves began to dissipate, flowing into the words she strung together as though weaving a tapestry. She embraced the vulnerability, allowing her emotions to guide her rather than hiding them in fear. With every sentence, she noticed nods of understanding and expressions that mirrored the journeys she had shared in her anecdotes. Yet her initial exhilaration was punctuated by a stark reminder of her insecurities. What if someone disagreed? What if they didn't resonate with her truth? She hesitated momentarily, the moment stretching into eternity. The faces in front of her were not judgmental. They were seekers of connection themselves, craving the same authenticity she now dared to offer. As Emily continued, recounting her fears and triumphs, she found her words gaining momentum, a powerful push toward liberation. This wasn't merely an exercise in courage, it was a revelation. She felt the hidden facets of herself emerging, her ability to articulate complex feelings, her knack for creating safe spaces through her writing. When she concluded, the familiar silence followed, but, thankfully, it broke into appreciative murmurs rather than critical ones. The room filled with applause, and she couldn't help but smile. A rush of relief washed over her, but the deep-seated recognition that this was only the beginning pulsed within her. Suddenly, a man from the back stood up, his expression contemplative. "I really connected with what you said about vulnerability. It's not something I can usually articulate. Would you be willing to collaborate on something? Maybe we can bring additional insight into these themes." Emily's heart leaped. Could this be the perfect opportunity for growth? The intersection of writing and collaboration felt exhilarating, yet daunting. Acceptance and potential were wrapped tightly together before her very eyes. As she nodded, her mind exploded with questions. Would this lead her toward a deeper understanding of her craft? Could she harness this collaborative energy to sharpen her voice? The possibilities spiraled out ahead of her, and a flicker of doubt slipped through the cracks. What if she wasn't ready for this? With each decision she made, the weight and allure of that choice settled in her heart. Diving deeper into her writing and forming collaborations would demand both strength and authenticity, a combination she was still learning to wield. As the meeting concluded and she stepped back into the world outside, one undeniable realization washed over her. This was no longer just about her story. It was about the stories waiting to be woven together in connection with others. But as exhilaration blossomed, the shadow of her fears lingered. Could she sustain this momentum, or would she retreat into the safety of her silent shelter before true growth could occur? The answer awaited her within the pages she yearned to fill. The initial excitement faded as Emily left the coffee shop, her thoughts swirling. The man's request lingered in her mind like a melody she couldn't quite grasp. Collaborate? The weight of that word felt heavy and exhilarating, tainted with uncertainty. What did she really have to offer? A part of her craved affirmation, but just beneath the surface, the familiar pang of self-doubt surfaced. Was she truly capable of sustaining the energy that a collaboration required, or would the pressure of expectations crush her newfound confidence? Days passed, and she found herself sitting at her writing desk, staring blankly at her notepad. The white sheet mocked her, each blank line a testament to potential unbound. Each time she thought of reaching out to him, of discussing the themes they could explore together, she hesitated. What if her ideas fell flat? What if they sounded juvenile compared to his experience? The mere thought of his seasoned insights overshadowed her own hesitations, leaving her feeling small. When she finally penned a message, her heart raced. "Hi, I'd love to collaborate. I think exploring vulnerability in writing could open a lot of dialogues." What if he didn't respond? The fear of rejection nibbled at her resolve, but to her surprise, his reply came almost instantly. "Great. Let's brainstorm ideas over coffee on Friday." A rush of anxiety and excitement collided within her, forcing her heart into a rapid rhythm. Would this meeting propel her into new artistic horizons, or would it confirm her fears of inadequacy? As Friday approached, the delicate balance between vulnerability and the fear of exposure weighed heavily on her. That morning, she prepared with care. She picked a top that made her feel confident and practiced what she would say, determined to guide the conversation. Yet as she approached the cafe, the playful chatter around her blended into a dull hum. She felt like an imposter on the brink of revelation, yet she was acutely aware of how fragile her confidence felt. Walking inside, she spotted him at a table, his demeanor relaxed, asking for the waiter's recommendations. "Hi," she said, her voice almost drowned out by the ambient noise. "You made it." He gestured to the seat across from him. "I'm glad you're here." As they settled into their conversation, he asked her about the themes she wanted to explore. His genuine interest ignited a spark within her. Slowly, she began sharing her thoughts, her initial hesitations ebbing away as she articulated ideas. Vulnerability creates bridges, right? It helps us understand one another on a level that's raw and real, she said. The moment she articulated those thoughts, she realized they resonated deeper than just words. They were fragments of her own journey toward acceptance. She watched as his eyes lit up. Absolutely. It's often the threads of our vulnerabilities that strengthen the fabric of our stories. We must risk being authentic. With every exchange, the fears she clung to started to dissipate, carried away by the current of their discussion. Emily found herself thriving in the conversation, but as they moved to discuss structure, a nagging thought crept back. What if he planned to take the lead entirely? The prospect of being sidelined felt suffocating. What if we both contribute equally? She asked cautiously. I want to ensure my voice is distinct in this project. His response mirrored understanding. Of course, Emily. I'm here to foster collaboration, not to overshadow your vision. I, too, believe in the power of shared narratives. With his reassurance, her insecurities began receding, transforming into burgeoning confidence. The potential for their project felt liberating, an invitation to explore themes that held true importance to her. Yet, a shadow of uncertainty loomed. Would this collaboration be an authentic venture, or simply another creative endeavor that ended in disappointment? As they formulated ideas, Emily began to trust her insights, seeing glimpses of her voice emerging with clarity and purpose. But beneath her exhilaration lingered an ever-present fear. What if her contributions fell flat when it came time to present them to a wider audience? It was a pain point she couldn't ignore, a nagging concern that threatened to unravel her newfound confidence. The conversations they were having fueled her determination, yet the flip side of that spark was the weight of accountability she felt standing alongside him. When they finished brainstorming, Emily left the cafe with renewed energy. The fear of collaboration seemed to push her into uncharted territories of personal growth. She understood that her journey demanded a balance between vulnerability and voice, each step more challenging than the last. But as the thrill of possibilities coursed through her veins, Emily was left grappling with a daunting realization. Was she truly prepared for the challenges ahead? The partnership promised excitement, yet could she sustain the courage needed to maintain her own authenticity amid doubt? As she pondered these questions, she knew one thing was clear. She was on the cusp of something greater, but with it came the weight of the unknown. The next chapter awaited, dawning on her with the undeniable urgency to discern the depths of her own conviction. Emily stood at the podium once again, but this time, the air was different. It was laced with a sense of purpose and newfound clarity. The cheers from the small crowd enveloped her, a warm embrace that felt worlds away from the isolation she once knew. Months of exploration and vulnerability had culminated in this moment, her first opportunity to share her collaborative work with others. Thank you all for coming, she began, her voice steady, not quaking with nerves as before, but resonating with confidence. Today, I want to share not just my story, but the story that emerged when I collaborated with a fellow writer, a journey forged through vulnerability, honesty, and the transformative power of connection. As she spoke, she reflected on the evolution that had brought her to this point. From the hollow feeling of abandonment to the embrace of mentorship with Mr. Thompson, she had transitioned from fear to a platform of purpose. She'd poured herself into her writing, capturing the essence of her struggles and triumphs, and allowing them to flourish in a space where others shared their narratives too. Vulnerability is not a weakness, Emily continued, passion igniting her words. It's a strength, a bridge that connects us to one another in our most honest, raw forms. I once feared revealing the depths of my experience, but by doing so, I discovered not just my voice, but the voices of many others longing to be heard. She paused, allowing the weight of her message to settle. Emily had shifted from huddling behind her walls of silence to stepping boldly into the realm of shared stories. The fear of judgment had transformed into camaraderie, a revelation that her experiences and emotions resonated in ways she never imagined. As she concluded, the applause erupted like fireworks, exhilarating and empowering. In that moment, she felt seen, not just as a girl yearning for connection, but as a voice that mattered. Acceptance washed over her, clearer than any she had ever felt before. Thank you for laying a foundation we can build on together, she said, inspired by her close friends and emerging allies in the audience. The moment felt monumental. No longer did she need to question if she belonged. She had found her footing in this new world, her efforts recognized and celebrated. Weeks later, After a successful launch and exposure from their collaborative article on vulnerability, Emily received an invitation to present at a local literary event, a platform that promised to showcase her work. The knowledge that she was being recognized as an emerging writer was astonishing. She couldn't help but marvel at how far she had come, not just in writing, but as an individual. Emily now stood confidently at the threshold of new possibilities, ready to embrace opportunities that flourished around her. She had become not just a storyteller, but an advocate for vulnerability, connecting with those who feared they didn't have a voice. Her apprehension had morphed into a solid sense of competence, cementing her professional journey. Reflecting on her transformation, Emily realized the essence of mentorship extended beyond just guidance. It had shaped her identity. She had forged a path littered with lessons about strength, connection, and community through the power of narrative. Every shared whisper of pain had become a chorus of resilience, uniting her with others who, like her, craved understanding and acceptance. This was the moment she had fought for, a recognition of her hard work and an established position in a world where her voice could resonate. With gratitude surging through her, Emily stepped back into the bright light of opportunity, ready for whatever awaited her. As she left the event that night, a feeling of profound satisfaction settled into her heart. She had not only conquered her own insecurities, but had also grown into a source of inspiration for others, proving to herself and to those around her that vulnerability indeed creates the strongest connections. Now, it was her time to call on you. If you resonate with this journey of transformation and discovery, you need to subscribe now to ensure you don't miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm, and let's grow this community further. Comment your reactions and theories about Emily's journey and how she managed to redefine both her narrative and her place in the world. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to spread these messages of personal growth and resilience. Your support matters.